PFAS are forever chemicals that don't break down in our body or the environment and may actually do that forever. The EPA has designated 9 of these chemicals as hazardous and is taking action. So let's talk about it. Hey everybody, it's Dr. David. How you doing? We're going to talk today about a topic that is very distressing, very stressful to hear about because it's something that we're all being exposed to. And of course, my goal is to educate you so that you can make the best decisions for yourself and for your family. So we're going to talk about these forever chemicals and where they come from. We're going to talk about what the health concerns are around them, and then the new EPA warnings about these chemicals, and then we're going to talk about what we may do. All right, so let's talk about this first. These forever chemicals, they are referred to as PFAS, PFAS, and they stand for per and polyfluoroalkyl substances. Polyfluoroalkyl substances just flows right off of the tongue, right? Now, these are chemicals that are used that they make what are called fluoropolymers, and they're coatings and products that are used to resist oil, water, grease, and stains. And they are found in a lot of different areas, things that we could be exposed to on a regular basis. Things like clothing, furniture, adhesives, food packaging, heat resistant nonstick cooking surfaces, which is where many of us may be getting our biggest exposure. It's also in the insulation for electrical wire. But it is also being found in our water systems. It can be found in well water or in what we're getting from our city municipalities. And most disturbing, it is thought to be found in 98% of our bodies. Okay. And it's felt to be that way throughout the human population, even people who are living off the grid, who are living up in the mountains, who are preparing their own food, filtering their own water, and it's still there. And I've said before, maybe we need to be finding a new planet because this is like everywhere. But we talked about nanoplastics a few weeks ago, and that's where it's at. Where those are concerns. Now this, certainly seems as if technology has taken over and exposed us to things in the last 100 years that we had never been exposed to, and certainly evolution could not keep up with the level of toxicity that we're being exposed to. And we haven't even talked about pesticides and other heavy metals and things like that in a while. Okay, now the persistence and the bioaccumulation of this PFAS in the environment, as I mentioned, they don't break down. I mean, we don't know forever that they don't break down because obviously they haven't been around or studied forever. But there's really no evidence that these are able to be broken down by the body or by the environment, etc. They also can move through soils and through contaminated drinking water sources, and then they can therefore build up in fish and wildlife, other food supplies, etc. Obviously, if it's in the soil and then the produce and other types of grains that we grow, so there can be exposure there. Of course, the animals that we eat, if we are people who do eat animals, can be accumulating there as well. So yeah, this is kind of a big time problem. Now, in terms of what it is that are thought that these PFAS actually do, well, the reason why the alarm is being sounded really is because it can lead to reproductive problems. It can lead to heart issues, breathing problems such as asthma, and also problems with the immune system. And it seems as if they can be inducing cancers as well. And of course, gosh, that's so much of what chronic health is about. And we're being exposed all the time. Now, we are now seeing that the EPA is sounding the alarm on this in the last couple of years. Now, this isn't something new. This has been something known well in the last decade. Unfortunately, because of cuts in the EPA that happened under the prior administration, the EPA is really just starting to find its footing again in order to fully address these types of problems. Okay, so about a year ago, the EPA called for standards in community drinking water, that they be tested for these PFAS. And they had identified six specific PFAS that were listed. And the EPA has said, and to quote this, that this is one of the most pressing environmental and public health concerns in the modern world. This is what the EPA is saying. And the administrator of the EPA, whose name is Michael Regan, went on to say, "We anticipate that when fully implemented, this rule will prevent thousands of deaths and reduce tens of thousands of serious PFAS related illnesses." So we're hearing about it. That's scary, but I mean, obviously it's good that they feel that they're going to be able to help people out. That doesn't sound like that many people relative to what it could be, but sure, thousands of deaths. Hey, that's wonderful. That really is a big thing, especially the types of diseases that we're talking about that people really can suffer from. Now, they do recommend, one of the things you can do is be checking with your local water source to see what they're testing as well as what they're finding. That should be public information. You should be able to go to your municipality's water page or department, and you should be able to find this information out. Okay, now fast forward to February 2024, where there's more information. Okay, now, first of all, what's happened now is that the Environmental Protection Agency has formally proposed that 9 of the PFAS chemicals, these forever chemicals, they've labeled them as hazardous. Okay, now it's been proposed, it hasn't been put forth as a formal statement simply because whenever the EPA puts out a statement such as this, there is a 60-day period where the public can make comments. So you can go to the EPA, you can find this, and you can actually make your own comments about how concerned you are and what you feel should be done about this. But after the 60 days, there's certainly no reason to think that this wouldn't become part of formal policy of our government, that we all should be taking a good look at to see what we could do to be minimizing. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But the changes in the regulations themselves would make it easier for the government to do a few things. First of all, to just address the PFAS as a part of its cleanup program. So obviously, we're talking about shore cleanups and air cleanups and water cleanups. So having this be listed as formally as a hazard makes a big deal. Okay. It also allows polluters to be held accountable. We can, if you know who these people are, they can be held accountable, whether it's through government sanctions, but also, you know, people find out about these things. When we originally, I've been an advocate of the environmental work group with the Clean 15 Dirty Dozen, and more recently, their Skin Deep, where people are able to see individual products and how toxic they are, and that almost seems to become a self-monitoring system, because if a company product shows up high up on the with a higher number for the Skin Deep, which are specifically products that are toxic, that could be in our nail, hair, skin products, things that are put on our bodies, those companies, it's kind of those products, it's kind of a death knell for them. They end up being discontinued a lot of the time. It's really fascinating that the good products are filtering up and people are using these things, these resources all the time. Okay, and of course, by doing this, it does allow to advance public health health concerns and protections going forward. Okay, now, according to the EPA, a hazardous material is defined as one of the following: a chemical that is a threat to human life or other life forms, and it has been shown that the chemical itself is toxic. Okay, or that it's found specifically to be cancerous, or it is mutagenic, which means that it could prompt changes in the DNA, or it could be what's called teratogenic, which means it can cause birth defects, that the chemicals can cause birth defects or and affect development of an embryo or a fetus. So if any of those things are present for a chemical, then it's deemed to be hazardous. Okay. Now, environmental groups say that this is definitely a good start. I mean, compared to what's been going on so far, this is a great start. But they're really wondering whether this is going far enough, and thinks that more is needed. In particular, some of these groups have been calling for the EPA to ban all of these PFAS chemicals. There's over 12,000 of them that's known. 6, as I said, for the water, 9 now being identified. A lot of the problem is that so many of these chemicals, because they're relatively new, or because there's so many of them, they just haven't been tested to be identified specifically as being a problem. But there are some things that we can do, of course, besides be frightened and wanting to go into a corner and curl up in a fetal position because of how scary this is and wondering, are we all doomed? Lovely thought, right? But there are things that we can do. First and foremost, since cookware is probably the place where we are the most exposed, okay? So there are safer options in terms of what the cookware is coated with, the outside that our food is coming in contact with. Things like cast iron skillets, ceramic, porcelain enamel, and carbon steel. So all of those are things that you can go, we can search, we can investigate, we can research our own products. I just bought a new one yesterday. Originally we were trying to avoid specifically Teflon and then other things, but yeah, but you can find this information out. The Amazon, all the companies. In fact, the good companies are listing what they're doing because they want to be known as the good guys. The other thing that we could be doing is filtering our water at home specifically. Now, there are specific certifications of water products, filtering products that are certified for being for treating PFAS and for filtering them out. So there are a couple certifiers. You can look for the symbols, the National Sanitation Foundation, that's the NSF, probably the more popularly known, and then the Water Quality Association, the NQA. But there are others as well. So, as opposed to, we've talked about avoiding plastics and water bottles. Of course, we talked about filtrations there and reverse osmosis and what that can do. So really, keeping it local, filtering your own tap water does seem to be the safest way of avoiding that in terms of the water, because of course, if we are healthy people drinking at least half a gallon to a gallon of water a day, we want to make sure that we're having good, clean sources of that as well. So tell me what you think about this. And also, reach out to the EPA. If you do, let us know. We'd love to hear what you have to say. Have a good day.